Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, here to bring you another episode review from Season 6 of The Loud House. Today's episode is titled, Forks and Knives Out. First we'll discuss the plot, and then my thoughts and critiques with my final score. So, let's get right into it. In this episode, Lincoln and Lynn Sr. compete against Ronnie Ann and Rosa Casagrande on Guy Grazer's kitchen combat, but they don't embrace the fighting aspect of the program Mr. Grazer expects of them. However, everyone starts getting aggressive and sabotaging their opponent's food once Guy offers more prizes, nearly putting an end to everyone's friendship in the process. The episode ends with everyone reconciling for their terrible behavior and walking away from the competition just as Guy is about to get manhandled by the refrigerator the contestants were competing for. Well, that's what happens when you give a household appliance a personality and arms. Many arms. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to my thoughts and critiques. You know how in most episodes that involve some form of competition, there's bound to be at least one character willing to sabotage their opponent in order to win? This episode does implement sabotage into the story, but not in the typical way you would normally expect. The main characters were competing on a show called Kitchen Combat, a reference to the show Cutthroat Kitchen. Unlike most other competitions where it would be wrong and unfair to commit sabotage against anyone, Kitchen Combat actually expects the competing teams to screw each other over in order to win. I believe this is the first time in the series where the characters are actually encouraged to play dirty. This is very interesting because usually you would expect a character to violate the spirit of fair competition by pulling sleazy stunts on their own accord. I have to give a point to the writers for taking the standard competition style storyline with the expectation of sabotage and putting a unique spin on it. Still, I get a feeling that if either Lincoln and his dad or Ronnie Ann and her abuela were competing against anyone who wasn't a friend, they wouldn't have held back on aggressively doing whatever it took to come out on top. Lynn Sr. said so himself. Speaking of whom, I really like the dynamic he and Rosa had in this episode. This is their first on-screen interaction in the main Loud House series following the Thanksgiving special, and they became good friends after putting aside their animosity for one another when they had their little food war from the same special. They were both originally meant to compete for some high-tech robotic refrigerator, and yet they didn't feel the need to really go into combat for it. They just didn't have the heart to get into a fierce battle for a prize they both really wanted, and they reinforced how much they respected each other by straight up working together to prepare their dishes, something I deeply respected, while the Loud House version of Gordon Ramsay did not. But speaking of Mr. Grazer, the presentation of his character in this episode was quite different from the last time we saw him, which was back in the Season 6 episode Dine and Bash. Apparently, he runs both the on-the-spot review show Kitchen Ambush and the sabotage-driven Kitchen Combat. His intentions for the latter were outright antagonistic because he wanted good television ratings, and it's such a strange shift in his character given how he acted the last time he made an appearance. He went from having the tough on the outside, compassionate on the inside persona to just being a total jerk for the sake of creating drama. Nonetheless, he still gave Lynn's Table a positive review and recommendation at the end of Dine and Bash, so there had to be a reason as to why he chose Mr. Loud to compete on Kitchen Combat other than giving his restaurant some free publicity. Here's my theory. Similar to how Kitchen Ambush was a way of testing people to see if they can prepare high quality dishes at a moment's notice, maybe Kitchen Combat was another way of testing people to see if they're truly capable of proving they are among the best, according to Mr. Grazer, with the added stipulation of trying to see who would be willing to do underhanded things to their fellow chefs in order to succeed. I get the underlying message of how one has to be assertive in order to get what they want in a first-come, first-served world, and that's the feeling Lynn and Rosa ended up embracing. You see, deep down, cooking is the most defining aspect of their respective characters, so to see them put their friendship aside while fighting each other tooth and nail for a new life-changing kitchen is something you would expect them to do. That kind of desire plays right into who they are, so you can't really blame them for giving in to temptation. The same concept goes for Lincoln and Ronnie Ann when they started acting like the adults when a froyo machine was up for grabs. Although that one is kinda iffy since I can't remember the last time either one of these two ever made a big deal about frozen yogurt. But hey, they're no strangers in trying to one-up each other on pranks, so they at least had that going for them in this episode. Anyway, Lynn and Rosa knew how much cooking meant to them. A brand new kitchen and a refrigerator that will literally offer a hand, 6 of them actually, around said kitchen are the sort of things master chefs like them would kill to have. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Going from friendly and non-competitive to ruthless and win at all costs is not considered out of character for either of them. Their bad behavior was encouraged like Mr. Grazer was expecting, and like I said, you have to be assertive to get what you want, and neither one of these talented chefs were going to let something as beautiful as a dream kitchen slip through their fingers. However, they took their thirst for competition too far and started making personal jabs at each other's cooking and told the kids their friendship was over, including theirs. The threat about the kids no longer being allowed to see each other was enough to make everyone realize a new kitchen, or any prize, is not as valuable as the friendship they'd be giving up, and that's when they decide to just quit the show. As predictably cliche as the ending may be, it's the kind of ending I deeply appreciate. You see, unlike the fallout to an underhanded competition-based episode like How the Best Was Won, the characters in this episode don't get some kind of prize at the end because they learned a lesson about friendship. Having everyone withdraw from kitchen combat and then leave the same way they first entered was a very dignified way to end the story, since, in my opinion, there's something very off-putting about giving any one specific character an undeserved victory. Clearly, none of these contestants deserved to win, and Guy Grazer certainly didn't deserve to keep his production crew when they decide to walk off with the Louds and Casagrandes after being moved by what they just went through. That's the kind of karma Mr. Grazer gets for making a show designed to drive a wedge between good people, so to say I would absolutely enjoy the idea of him getting completely wrecked by a robotic refrigerator would be an understatement. You get what you get for the choices you make, and Mr. Grazer was definitely going to get what he had coming to him. Now, there is one more thing I do want to talk about regarding who Mr. Loud chose as his partner for the show, but I'll talk about that after my final thoughts. Overall, this was a fun culinary Loud Casagrande family crossover, and for once the act of sabotage was both expected and encouraged instead of being committed in a more secretive way. The dynamic between Lynn Sr. and Rosa was pretty good, and they both demonstrated how far they'd be willing to go if it means getting a hold on a new kitchen and household appliances to add to their ever-growing cooking endeavors. Guy Grazer was the token antagonist who faced a well-earned punishment for what he tried to do to good people, and the main characters walking off the show without winning anything was a respectable way to put an end to the story. Even if the main lesson was the usual run-of-the-mill cliche of learning how friendship is better than material possessions, the sacrifice made by both cooking-oriented characters and their kids was something I still very much appreciated. With that said, I give Forks and Knives Out an 8.6 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of Forks and Knives Out. I will end this review with something worth thinking about. Originally, Mr. Loud was going to pick Luann to be his sous chef before she had to decline the offer. Their short interaction and potential partnership for the show was like a subtle nod to the episode Feast or Family, where Luann proved to have a knack for cooking. Lincoln was chosen to be his dad's partner instead, but that got me thinking. Do you think this episode would have been better, worse, or about the same if Luann was sharing the lead with her dad instead of Lincoln? Reply to the pinned comment down below, and let's see if you're on either Team Lincoln or Team Luann. I would love to hear your reasons as to why or why not, but in the meantime, as far as the rest of the episode goes, what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? Change? Keep it as it is? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.